No Filter, The Inside Story of Instagram, by Sarah Fryer. Picture this: hundreds of excited 20-somethings touching down on a private Bahamas island, hearts racing with anticipation. They'd shelled out thousands, sometimes tens of thousands, for tickets to what was supposed to be the most incredible weekend of their lives. Celebrity chefs preparing gourmet meals, world-famous musicians performing under the stars, supermodels lounging on perfect white sand beaches. This was the Fyre Festival, hyped as the most exclusive event of the decade. And the secret weapon that sold this dream to the world? Instagram. The organizers paid some of the planet's most famous influencers massive amounts of money. In one case, $250,000 for a single post to promote this festival. These influencers posted one simple orange tile, and suddenly everyone wanted in. It looked like absolute paradise, the ultimate expression of living your best life. But when those hopeful festival goers stepped off their planes, reality hit hard. No luxury villas, just disaster relief tents. The gourmet food turned out to be a sad slice of cheese, slapped on bread in a styrofoam container. Every musical act had bailed. Total chaos. A complete fraud, built entirely on gorgeous pictures. This single disaster, which became a cultural phenomenon, global punchline, and the subject of multiple documentaries, reveals everything about the power of the app we're exploring today. We're diving into the extraordinary book No Filter, The Inside Story of Instagram, by brilliant tech reporter Sarah Fryer. This isn't just another tech company story. Fryer spent years conducting hundreds of interviews with employees, executives, competitors, and even the founders themselves to uncover the definitive account of how a simple photo-sharing app changed everything. Instagram became the ultimate measure of cultural relevance, a celebrity-making machine unlike anything we'd ever seen, and the engine powering a multi-billion-dollar influencer industry. It's reshaped everything from fashion and travel to our very definitions of beauty and success. Over the next several minutes, I'm taking you through this incredible narrative. You'll discover how two young founders, driven by a love for art and simplicity, created something truly magical. You'll witness the secret, high-stakes negotiations behind a shocking $1 billion sale to Facebook. And most importantly, you'll understand the deep, often hidden tensions between art and commerce, creativity and data, that defined Instagram's soul and ultimately drove its founders to walk away from their creation. This is more than the story of an app. It's the story of the last decade. It's the story of how our world came to be seen, quite literally through a filtered lens. Our story doesn't start in some futuristic Silicon Valley office. It starts in Florence, Italy. A young Stanford student named Kevin Systrom is studying photography. He's thoughtful, curious, 6'5", with a passion for art, vintage bourbon, and beautifully crafted things. He'd saved up for an expensive, high-quality camera to capture the Renaissance city's beauty. He was chasing perfection, but his professor had different plans. He took away Systrom's fancy camera and handed him a cheap plastic toy called a Holga. It only took blurry, square, black and white photos. The professor's lesson was simple, but it would change Systrom's entire trajectory. You have to learn to love imperfection, he said. A better tool doesn't automatically create better art. That idea, that creative constraints could transform something imperfect into something beautiful, buried itself deep in Systrom's mind. Around the same time, back in California, Systrom had an interesting encounter with another young guy on the verge of changing the world. He met Mark Zuckerberg at a party. Zuckerberg, who was building a small college network called the Facebook.com, tried convincing Systrom to drop out of Stanford and join him. He wanted Systrom to build a photo feature for the site, but the meeting ended awkwardly when Zuckerberg's credit card got declined at lunch. Systrom politely declined the offer, choosing to finish his education and study abroad. He'd just missed his first chance to join a revolution. He would miss a second. During an internship at a podcasting company called Audio, Systrom became close friends with a quiet, artistic engineer with a nose ring named Jack Dorsey. The two bonded over great coffee and photography. Shortly after, Dorsey and his colleagues would pivot Audio into a new company, a text-based service called TWTTR. Systrom thought they were absolutely crazy. He couldn't imagine anyone using it. Two of the next decade's biggest companies tried recruiting him, and both times he walked away. But these experiences taught him something invaluable. From the outside, Silicon Valley seemed run by geniuses. From the inside, he saw everyone was just figuring it out as they went. After graduating, Systrom took safe jobs at Google and then a small travel startup, but nights and weekends found him tinkering. This was the dawn of the iPhone era, and a new gold rush was on: mobile apps. Systrom built a clunky mobile website called Bourbon, named after his favorite whiskey. It was a location-based check-in app, kind of like Foursquare, where you could share where you were going. It also had a photo feature, but it was so complicated you had to email your picture in for it to post. Interesting idea, but it tried doing too many things at once. He managed to raise $500,000 from investors, but with one condition: he needed a co-founder. That's when he teamed up with Mike Krieger, a brilliant and kind-hearted Brazilian engineer he knew from Stanford. Krieger was the perfect partner: level-headed, deeply skilled, and universally liked. Where Systrom could seem intense or even pretentious, Krieger was the smiling, calming presence. The two worked out of a rickety co-working space on a San Francisco pier, surrounded by seagull sounds and other struggling startups. But Bourbon wasn't catching on. Too complicated. People didn't know what to do with it. One day, feeling defeated, they sat down in front of a whiteboard. They decided to do something radical. Focus on just one thing. What was the one feature people actually liked about Bourbon? It wasn't the check-ins or virtual prizes. It was the photos. Systrom had a vision. He saw a future where everyone would have a camera in their pocket, but those phone cameras took terrible, blurry, poorly lit pictures. This was the problem they'd solve. They identified 3 key issues. Phone pictures were ugly, they took forever to load on slow networks, and sharing them across different social networks was annoying. They decided to build a simple iPhone-only app solving these 3 problems. Photos would be square, a creative constraint, just like Systrom's professor in Florence had given him. And instead of building a friend network from scratch, they'd be a friendly partner to the giants, letting users easily share photos to Facebook and Twitter. Brilliant move. Instead of competing, they'd piggyback on existing communities. But one piece was still missing. While vacationing in Mexico with his girlfriend Nicole, she told him she probably wouldn't use his new app. Her photos just weren't good enough. Systrom explained that their friends posting nice photos were all using separate filter apps to make them look better. "Well," she said, "you guys should probably have filters too." Lightning bolt moment. Systrom realized she was absolutely right. He stayed up that night, sitting on a lounge chair with a beer, and coded the very first Instagram filter. He called it X Pro 2. He tested it on a photo of a stray dog near a taco stand, with his girlfriend's foot in the corner. That photo, taken July 16, 2010, was the first ever post on the app that would become Instagram. They called it Instagram, combining instant and telegram to convey speed and communication. They didn't invent photo filters, and they didn't invent social networks. But they combined these ideas with obsessive focus on simplicity, speed, and feel. Liking a photo was as easy as a double tap. The app loaded faster than anything else. And, most importantly, it made your imperfect life look like art. They picked their first users carefully, courting designers and photographers with large Twitter followings who would set the right artistic tone. Their most important early evangelist was their old friend Jack Dorsey. Dorsey loved the app so much he started posting his photos to his 1.6 million Twitter followers, telling the world it was his favorite new thing. When Instagram launched publicly on October 6, 2010, it immediately went viral. #1 in the App Store. They got 25,000 users on day 1. A week later, 100,000. Krieger, the engineering genius, basically didn't sleep, constantly carrying his laptop to bars, restaurants, even movie theaters to keep their single server from crashing under the unexpected load. Within months, they passed 2 million users. They were the talk of Silicon Valley. But with buzz comes competition, and with competition comes the attention of giants. Jack Dorsey, seeing how powerful Instagram was becoming, tried convincing Twitter to buy the small company. But his co-founder, E.V. Williams, dismissed the idea. He thought Instagram was frivolous, just for people taking artsy pictures of their lattes. He didn't think it would ever be big. Another massive miscalculation. The other giant, Facebook, was watching much more closely. In early 2012, Systrom was raising a new funding round that would value Instagram at a stunning $500 million. Just as the papers were about to be signed, his phone rang. It was Mark Zuckerberg. "I've thought about it, and I want to buy your company," Zuckerberg said, getting straight to the point. "I'll give you double whatever you're raising your round at. $1 billion. For a tiny company with just 13 employees and zero revenue. What followed was one of Silicon Valley's most secretive and dramatic negotiations. It happened over a single Easter weekend, almost entirely at Zuckerberg's Palo Alto house. Systrom initially asked for $2 billion, but Zuckerberg negotiated him down. During the talks, Zuckerberg, who had a phase where he'd only eat meat from animals he'd killed himself, grilled up a mystery meat slab, maybe boar, maybe venison, for his guests. At one point, his mop-like Hungarian sheepdog Beast even lunged at Facebook's deals director. Zuckerberg was playing chess while everyone else played checkers. He knew Systrom was close with Jack Dorsey at Twitter. He insisted the deal be done in a single weekend to prevent Twitter from making a counteroffer. But Zuckerberg also knew what Systrom truly valued, perhaps more than money. Twitter wanted to absorb Instagram and make Systrom a product manager. Zuckerberg made a different, more powerful promise: independence. "We're committed to building and growing Instagram independently," he'd write in his public announcement. He told Systrom he'd let them run Instagram like a separate company, with him acting more like a board member than a boss. It was an offer Systrom couldn't refuse. Late Sunday night, in Zuckerberg's living room, he signed the contract. The deal shocked the world. No one had ever paid that much for a mobile app before. The next morning, Instagram's 13 employees were called into an 8 a.m. meeting. They were terrified they were about to be fired or the company was shutting down. Instead, Systrom announced the news. Facebook had bought them for $1 billion. The reaction was a mix of gasps, tears, and stunned laughter. For some, it was a dream come true. For others, particularly those from a company Facebook had previously acquired and shut down, it felt like a nightmare. They thought, anyone but Facebook. The promise of independence was about to be put to the ultimate test. The Instagram team moved onto Facebook's sprawling Menlo Park campus, a place employees called a college campus, with free gourmet food, arcades, and a sweet shop. Right in the middle of it all, the word hack was painted on the ground in letters so large they could be seen from airplanes. It was complete culture shock. Facebook's motto was, "Move fast and break things." It was a place driven by data, growth metrics, and a relentless, almost religious obsession with connecting the world, which meant getting as many people as possible to use Facebook as often as possible. Instagram, on the other hand, was built on craft, simplicity, and a, quote, community-first ethos. They made decisions based on feel and taste, not just data. This clash was perfectly captured in a little incident that became legendary inside the company, known as, quote, Trash Can Gate. One day, Systrom noticed the Instagram office space was cluttered with personal trash cans at every desk, just like the rest of Facebook. He declared the trash cans had to go. They were ugly and messy. Instead, everyone would use centralized bins. To Facebook veterans, this was peak absurdity. They were trying to beat competitors, and the Instagram founder was worried about trash cans. But to Systrom, the environment had to reflect the product's values: clean, simple, and thoughtfully designed. This small battle was a metaphor for the larger war for Instagram's soul that would play out over the next 6 years. Systrom and Krieger fought to keep Instagram feeling special. They resisted Facebook's aggressive growth tactics, like sending excessive notifications. They built a partnerships team led by a man named Charles Porch, whose mission was personally courting the world's biggest celebrities, fashion designers, and even the Pope, teaching them how to use Instagram in an authentic, behind-the-scenes way. This human touch was completely alien to Facebook, which solved every problem with algorithms and scaled systems. But it worked. Instagram became the cultural destination. It wasn't just a place for your friends. It was a window into the lives of the most famous and interesting people on the planet. And it wasn't just for the already famous. Instagram began creating its own celebrities. Through its suggested user list, the company's community team would handpick everyday photographers, artisans, and chefs, and instantly grant them massive audiences. An account for a funny-looking dog named Tuna went from a few thousand followers to tens of thousands overnight after being featured on the Instagram blog, eventually allowing its owner to quit her job and manage her dog's career full-time. This was the birth of the influencer economy. An entire industry sprouted up, built on the currency of followers and likes. Brands realized it was more effective to pay a person with a loyal following to post about their product than to buy a traditional ad. The Kardashian-Jenner family, in particular, turned this into an art form, building a multi-billion-dollar empire by seamlessly blending their lives with sponsored products, making their followers feel like friends, not customers. Life itself was becoming a performance, curated for an audience. Restaurants started designing their food and lighting to be Instagrammable. Tourist destinations saw visitor numbers explode after being featured in popular posts. And a darker side emerged: the pressure to be perfect. This is where Instagram's greatest rival enters the story. While Instagram was becoming a museum of our best moments, a new app called Snapchat was taking over high schools. Created by brash young Stanford student Evan Spiegel, Snapchat was the anti-Instagram. Its core feature was that photos and videos disappeared. There were no likes, no public comments. It was for the silly, goofy, imperfect moments. The 99% of your life that wasn't beautiful enough for the Instagram feed. Inside Instagram, panic began setting in. They were conducting secret focus groups with teenagers, called Third Thursday Teens, and the feedback was alarming. Teens felt immense pressure on Instagram. They'd take dozens of selfies to find the perfect one, send it to a group chat for approval, and delete it if it didn't get enough likes. They were even creating second private accounts, called Finstas, fake Instagrams, where they could post their unpolished, real selves for a small group of friends. Instagram was becoming a job, and Snapchat was where you went to have fun. The data confirmed it. Snapchat was growing faster than Instagram, stealing the youth. A small group of employees inside Instagram began arguing they had to do something drastic. They had to copy Snapchat's most popular feature, Stories, a collection of photos and videos that disappeared after 24 hours. Systrom hated the idea. It felt like betraying everything Instagram stood for. Instagram was for high-quality, permanent moments. Instagram is not for half-eaten sandwiches. He'd tell his team. He believed copying was a sign of weakness. For months he refused. But the data was undeniable, and the pressure from Zuckerberg, who'd already tried and failed to buy Snapchat for $3 billion, was immense. Then came the 2016 Oscars. While Instagram had painstakingly set up a beautiful portrait studio, they watched as all the A-list celebrities backstage were having fun posting goofy, ephemeral videos to Snapchat. It was the tipping point. Systrom gathered his executives. He drew a mock-up of the Instagram app with little circles at the top. They were going to build their own version of Stories. In August 2016, Instagram launched Instagram Stories to all 500 million of its users at once. When asked about the blatant copying, Systrom was brutally honest. "They deserve all the credit," he said of Snapchat. "This is about a format, and how you take it to a network and put your own spin on it." It was one of tech history's most ruthless and effective moves. Instagram had the one thing Snapchat didn't: a massive, global user base. While Snapchat was quirky and confusing, Instagram Stories was polished and easy to use. It took off immediately in countries where Snapchat was weak, and slowly but surely, it began stealing Snapchat's momentum everywhere else. Within a year, more people were using Instagram Stories every day than were using all of Snapchat. Instagram hadn't just copied its rival, it had kneecapped it. This victory should have been Instagram's crowning achievement. They'd beaten their biggest threat and were on a clear path to 1 billion users. But their success came at a cost. Back at Facebook headquarters, Mark Zuckerberg was looking at the data, and he was growing concerned. Facebook's own growth was slowing down. People weren't sharing as many personal moments on the Big Blue app anymore, and Instagram's explosive success with Stories was starting to look less like a win for the parent company, and more like a threat. He began using a word that sent a chill through the Instagram team: cannibalization. Was Instagram's growth coming at Facebook's expense? Every minute a user spent on Instagram was a minute they weren't spending on Facebook, where the advertising machine was most mature. The original promise of independence began to fray. Zuckerberg started asking for more family bridges, integrations that would push Instagram users back to Facebook. He asked Systrom to build a prominent link to Facebook inside the Instagram app, while simultaneously removing the link to Instagram from the Facebook app. It was a one-way street. Then Facebook's growth team turned off some of the key levers that had helped Instagram grow for years, like the feature that let new users easily find and follow their Facebook friends on Instagram. Overnight, Instagram's growth, for the first time in its history, slowed to a halt. It was a power play. Zuckerberg was showing them who was really in charge, proving that Instagram's success depended on Facebook's goodwill. To get their growth back, the Instagram team had to adopt the very same aggressive, spammy tactics they'd resisted for years. The final blow came during headcount negotiations. Despite Instagram being on track to hit 1 billion users and generating billions in revenue, Zuckerberg allocated a shockingly low number of new employees to the team. He was starving them of the resources they needed to manage their massive scale and tackle growing problems like bullying and illegal drug sales on the platform. He was prioritizing the struggling Facebook app over his thriving acquisition. For Systrom and Krieger, this was the end of the line. The implicit deal they'd made with Zuckerberg 6 years earlier in his living room had been broken. They'd delivered a thriving, world-changing product, but in return, their autonomy was being stripped away. The joy was gone. In September 2018, just months after celebrating their 1 billionth user, Kevin Systrom and Mike Krieger announced their resignation. In a quiet, dignified blog post, they said they were leaving to explore our curiosity and creativity again. Hidden in the bland corporate language was a powerful final statement. They never once mentioned Mark Zuckerberg by name. The two artists who'd created a global phenomenon walked away, leaving their creation in the hands of the empire that had bought it. The filter had finally been removed, revealing the unvarnished reality of power and control that lies at the heart of Silicon Valley. The story of Instagram, as told in No Filter, is so much more than a business case study. It's a modern epic about the collision of art and data, creativity and commerce, authenticity and performance. It's a story that holds up a mirror to our own lives and asks some profound questions. What I find most powerful about this narrative is the central tension Kevin Systrom and Mike Krieger lived with every single day. The fight to protect the feeling of something special against the relentless pressure to grow at all costs. They started with a simple, elegant idea: make mobile photos beautiful. They built a community around craft and discovery. But as the app scaled to 1 billion people, that original, intimate feeling became harder and harder to maintain. The world they created ended up being far more complex than they ever imagined. It became a place of immense opportunity, launching careers and entire industries. It gave a voice and platform to millions, but it also became a place of intense pressure, anxiety, and comparison, where our own lives can sometimes feel inadequate when viewed next to the polished highlight reels of others. The irony is that the founders themselves, especially Systrom, eventually felt the same pressure to perform that their users did. His own Instagram feed became less about spontaneous moments and more about a curated, public-facing brand. The departure of the founders marks the end of an era, not just for Instagram but for the Internet. It symbolizes the consolidation of power, where even the most successful and beloved products are ultimately in service to the goals of a handful of giant parent companies. Instagram won its battle against Snapchat, but in the end, it couldn't win the war for its own soul against Facebook. So what can we take away from this incredible story? How can we navigate the world that Instagram has built? I think it comes down to a few simple ideas. First, become a conscious curator of your own experience. The Instagram algorithm is designed to show you what it thinks you want to see, to keep you scrolling. But you have the power to choose. Actively follow accounts that teach you something, that inspire creativity, or that genuinely make you laugh. Unfollow the ones that make you feel like you're not enough. Treat your feed like a garden. You have to actively weed it to let the good things grow. Second, shift your focus from consumption to creation. The app was born from a desire to make and share art. Use it for that. Take a photo of something you find beautiful, not because you think it'll get a lot of likes, but because you want to remember that moment of beauty. Use stories to share a goofy, imperfect moment with a few close friends. Reclaim the tool as an outlet for your own creativity, not just a scoreboard for your popularity. And finally, remember the title of the book, No Filter. The most important lesson is to apply this idea to our own lives. Be aware of the filters, both digital and mental, that shape our perception of reality. Understand that what you see online is a curated performance, not the full story. The real, messy, imperfect, and beautiful moments of life often happen when the phone is down. Seek those out. Cherish them. They don't need a like button to be valuable. That was a summary of No Filter, the Inside Story of Instagram by Sarah Fryer. We've touched on the major beats of this incredible story today, but a summary is like looking at a single, beautiful photograph of a vast and complex landscape. The real power is in the journey itself. The book is filled with so many more details, anecdotes, and human moments that truly bring this story to life. If you've been intrigued by the rise of this app and its impact on our culture, I can't recommend picking up a copy enough. Reading it is an experience that will fundamentally change how you see that little icon on your phone screen. A link to the book is in the description below. Also, if you've found this journey valuable and want to explore more of the incredible books that have shaped our world, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to the channel. It lets me know these deep dives are helpful, and it ensures you won't miss our next exploration into another life-changing book. Let's keep learning and growing together.